Hi, I'm Ken Golden, and this is my latest listening room episode. This is a topic that I've been toying with for quite some time. I am an unrepentant audiophile. Perhaps you are. If you're not, I'm not sure why you're watching this. You should be watching Andy Edwards over on his channel. I understand he's making a very nice cucumber sandwich today. But if you're interested in good sound or even great sound, then I wanted to talk to you about great sounding CDs in my collection. And I have a long history with uh, being an audiophile. I started when I was 15 years old. My parents bought me a stereo. It was an old piece of crap, but it was my first system. And it was a terrible Sony compact, but it served me well. I started to upgrade, bought a Thornton's turntable with birthday money, and eventually replaced the speakers, replaced the Sony with better electronics, and then it spiraled out of sight to the point where I've actually built a dedicated listening room, and we've had a number of people ask me about the listening room, and eventually, not today, but eventually we will get to talk about the room itself and the equipment, and you'll get a little tour, and it'll be fun. But today we're going to have a different kind of fun. So I thought it would be nice to talk about great sounding CDs. And if people respond well to this episode, I'll do great sounding vinyl. What's great sound? So to me, we're talking about the recreation of a musical event. So some things like pop recordings, we're talking about multi-track recordings recorded over multiple sessions, multiple players, overdubs. But at the end of the day, somehow, good engineer and a producer are able to suspend disbelief to the point that you have the sensation that you are peering into a musical event, so to speak. And one way to do that, I think, for beginners, let's say, is with proper room setup. And I highly recommend this book by Laura Dearborn. It's called Good Sound. And I'm seeing this in reverse, and I'm hoping that you are not. Book's been out of print for many years, but you should be able to find a used copy of it on Amazon. And it's just a good basic primer on how to get good sound out of your system. So you may not have a very fancy system, but maybe you can just tune it a bit, maybe moving speakers around, things like that, isolating your turntable or your CD player, things like that can make a difference. So that's a conversation for another time, but I'm just throwing it out there. So I'm going to go through a big stack of CDs here that I've pulled out of my collection that I think are great sounding CDs. Uh, I think they're good reference points. You may use them, obviously, for musical enjoyment. That's the most important thing to me. Uh, but uh, they may be useful tools for you. If, let's say, you want to upgrade your system, you want to go out and listen to speakers, and you want to take something with you that you're familiar with. A lot of these, most of these, would be good reference recordings. Now, the old cliche about audiophiles is that audiophiles listen to their electronics, they listen to their equipment, they don't listen to music. To some degree, I have to say that there is some truth to that. I do know a lot of people like that. But I also know a lot of audiophiles, and I count myself as one of them, where the music always comes first. The electronics are very important to bring you that closer connection to the music, but they're not the focal point of the listening experience. Not for me. So we're going to go through some basic pop rock. I have a little prog section. We're going to go through some fusion, some jazz, some soundtracks, and some classical. And originally I was just going to do it randomly, but I think it would be too chaotic. I think it makes more sense to kind of group these. And one thing you'll notice that's missing is metal. From my perspective, there is no good sounding metal recordings. Doesn't mean they're not a lot of fun. Doesn't mean they're not great. It just means they're not great sounding. Why aren't they great sounding? Because they are compressed to death. Music doesn't breathe. In order to make these albums loud, which is the key for most metal bands, they have to compress the signal. And by doing that, all the dynamic range is squashed. These albums are crushed. You hear terms like brick walling. And I remember many, many years ago when I was doing an album for my Sensory label, which is my metal label, one of the bands kept asking to make the album louder and louder. And I asked Bob Katz, my mastering engineer, if he could do that. And then finally, he just said, Ken, tell me just how shitty do you want me to make this sound? So, we reached a compromise. And I will point out one thing. I have to give respect to the guys in Haken because when we did the second Haken album, they actually asked to back off the mastering levels that we had set, and we did. We dialed it back a bit, made the music a bit more melodic. That was for the Visions album, as I recall. So anyway, I'm going to get into it, and hopefully this is of interest to you. And if not, well, like I said, there's always Andy Edwards. Okay, first let's get into some pop stuff. Joe Jackson, Body and Soul. So this is a recording that he did in 1984. And I got turned on to this album actually from Bob Katz. And Bob is renowned mastering engineer. He actually literally wrote the book on mastering, which is a reference tool for all up and coming recording engineers and mastering engineers. So Bob used to have something on his website called the Honor Roll, and he would talk about dynamic range and great sound. And Body and Soul was there. The album was engineered by Rick Bukoinen, mastered by Bernie Grunman, one of the great mastering engineers. Just very dynamic, very, very spacious, just great soundstage. Soundstage. What's a soundstage? Soundstage is when you can literally place the instruments, the musicians in space. So, track like Cha Cha Loco, phenomenal. The soundstage just goes way back into the room. It's just like the front wall of your system, of your room, just blown out. Just fantastic. Next, this is actually a compilation. This one's a bit of a mixed bag, and this is by Alison Krauss. And it's called 100, what is it? 100 Miles or More. Some of it, not so great sounding, but it's worth buying it just for the track Jacob's Dream. Female vocals tend to be a torture test for audio systems. And there's a purity to them that most systems have difficulty with. Not all, but a lot. And you'll see people bringing to audio shows. If you're going to an audio show like Axpona, you'll see a lot of guys carrying female vocal CDs with them to use as a reference. And Alison Krauss' voice is just magnificent. And Jacob's Dream, just an amazing, amazing track. This is, again, one of these CDs, if you could pick it up very cheap. Some tracks on here sound better than others. Jacob's Dream is worth the price of admission. All right, next. This is by Led Zeppelin, How the West Was Won. Now, I'm not telling you that this is the ultimate in terms of dynamic range or anything like that, but this is a 3 CD set recorded, it says here, in Long Beach Arena in 1972. It was recorded 2 nights at the Long Beach Arena. And man, this is just massive sounding, just absolutely phenomenal. Somebody sent me the DVD audio, and that sounds probably even better, but I'm not going to talk about that. But man, this thing is just immense. This puts you in the Long Beach Arena, and turn the lights off. You put this on, you turn the lights off, you're transported, man. You're in the time machine. It's fantastic. Again, I'm not telling you it's the ultimate in dynamics, but man, this thing sounds huge and it's just incredibly involving. It's just like being there. More. We got this is one of the great sounding recordings in the world of pop music. Lyle Lovett, Joshua Judge's Ruth. This was recorded by the great George Massenburg. This is an all digital recording. Just very involving, beautiful songs. And the second song, Church, besides the fact that it's being a pretty funny tune, it's with a gospel choir. And the sound staging is fantastic. You can literally place the different vocalists as they pop out in the different parts of the sound stage. And there's a lot of layering front and back. Great stuff. All right, now that's it for like pop stuff. Again, I've got this ridiculous stack here and I don't want to make this a marathon. I could have pulled out even more stuff. So here's a crazy one from Japan by the Gana Yarashiro Gumi Musical Collective. And this is called, Asorian Dona Kenbai. And it consists of two long tracks. And it's just an immaculate recording. In fact, this is one of those recordings where inside in the liner notes, they actually give you a diagram of the placement of all the musicians and the vocalists. This is like magma on acid. It's just absolutely intense. Two side long tracks, two very different tracks. Side one is fully electric. Side two is purely vocal. A lot of chanting, totally crazed stuff. But it's all about the first side. And again, very dynamic. And the placement of the instruments, it's all over the place. It's outrageous. It's wonderful album. More prog. And this one, I'm going to pat myself on the back. Island Pictures. This is a reissue that we did. When did we do this, Ken? We did this in 1996. It's a reissue of the 1977 album by the Swiss prog band Island. H.R. Giger did the cover. We're getting some reflection here. And it's kind of dark and kind of very much got like a bit of a Van Gogh generator flavor. Claudio Fabi produced this, recorded in Italy, and great recording. Now, also, one other thing I should mention before I hit the next one, again, one of mine, is that a lot of these albums have been reissued later on. There may be a later pressing by another label of this. I can only speak of mine in this case. And as I said, I will point out the catalog numbers so that you'll know which version to buy if you want to explore these. So the next one, again, this is one that we did, Spring. This was the great British band. You like Mellotron. There was one Mellotron, three guys playing it, and this was originally released on the Neon label, the RCA Neon label, and this one was a real labor of love. They had the triple fold Keith cover. Now, this got bootlegged by the Karma label later on, and then also Esoteric reissued it. I think there's a Japanese one. Ours is the one to own. If you pop on over to the dynamic range database, there's an actual website where they track the dynamic range of CDs. You'll see by far, if you compare the different versions of Spring, ours is by far the most dynamic. We worked from the original analog master tapes, and I suspect that Repertoire and Karma and Esoteric worked from RCD as their reference point and just made it sound worse, frankly. So ours sounds great. One of my favorite reference recordings, Peter Gabriel 4, also known Security. Now, this is the original CD version that came out on Geffen Records, and to my ears, this is the best sounding version. This was reissued on SACD and then also, again, remastered. I think that this one slays those versions. Again, you could find this one very, very cheap. This was an all digital recording, very dynamic, great placement of instruments, lots of layering, lots of front to back layering. So if your room is set up correctly, you're gonna hear the percussion. You can hear Tony Levin, David Rhodes. It's all going on, man, and it's a beautiful, beautiful album. And man, you shut the lights off. Peter's in the room with you. So Rhythm of the Heat, whew, phenomenal. Next for CMP, prog rock fusion. I'm not sure what you want to call it. This is Polytown. This is a great recording. David Torn, Mick Karn, Terry Bozzio, and this was, yeah, CMP was a very nice label, German label. Did some very, very nice recordings. Again, all digital, mastered by Bob Ludwig. Great, great record. Now, as much as it pains me to do this, I'm going to have to say nice things about Steve Feigenbaum. On his Cuneiform Records label, he put out two really great sounding albums from Universe Zero. It's kind of difficult listening. It's chamber rock, RIO, whatever you want to call it. Use that as a studio recording. This was recorded in 1984. Superb sounding album. And then this live one, also great, great sound. Again, very dark. This is from 2006. Very kind of dark, but really, really great kind of You Are There quality. Since we're doing Prague, I'm doing Prague. I'm going to talk about for a moment my upcoming release from Agripelter. I know I've been pummeling everybody on the channel with this album, and hopefully you'll be hearing a lot more about it. We have this coming out on July 25th, and the reason I'm bringing it up is not to pimp it. Of course, I want you to buy it, but it's a great sounding album, a great prog rock album, very dynamic. It's going to push your subwoofers into submission. Just great, great stuff. Jacob Holm Lupo from White Willow did the mixing and mastering, and there's great, great spread of instruments and a lot of depth to it. Beautiful record, and you'll get to hear it in what 2 weeks or so. All right, in the fusion realm, Coronarius Dan's Visitors. So this was released in Denmark on Steeplechase. This is a reissue that came out in 1996 of a recording from 1973. And Coronarius Dan's actually featured on this recording three members of Secret Oyster. You have Kenneth Knudsen on electric piano. You got the great Klaus Bolling from Hurdy-Gurdy and Secret Oyster on guitar. Ollie Strindberg on drums. Peter Fries-Nielsen on bass. And Morten Grunet on tambura on one track. Anyway, again, you like fusion, jazz rock. Steeplechase always did a nice job with their recordings, and I highly recommend this. All right, this one's a bit of a cheat. Hiromi. This is her Sonic Bloom band called Time Control. She's got David Fusinski on guitar. She's playing all kinds of electric keyboards. Fuse is playing fretted and fretless guitar. Tony Gray on bass, and Martin. My God, my eyes are going. Martin Valahara on drums. Great, great fusion, and probably her most fusion oriented. The CD layer, it's a hybrid SACD, came out on Telarc. The CD layer sounds excellent if you're able to play SACDs. This takes it to the next level. Great piano trio, and probably the album with the highest dynamic range of anything in my collection. This is the Keith Jarrett trio. It's called Changeless. It was on the Great ECM label. And the trio is Keith Jarrett, Gary Peacock, Jack DeJohnette. And it was mixed by the great, great late Jan Erkanschag at Rainbow Studio in Oslo. To my ears, he was the greatest of all recording engineers, better than Rudy Van Gelder, better than I don't care who you say. Jan Erkanschag, for my mind, was the guy. And as long as you can get past Keith Jarrett's grunting and groaning, superb album. Here's a nice album. And I guess this really is a fusion album. I should have stuck it in there. This is SFX featuring Alan Murphy. Alan Murphy died at a very young age. This was recorded in 1984. And he was a phenomenal guitar player. And I think he played with Level 42 and a bunch of other pop bands. And this was a fusion session. And this got reissued by Name Audio and mastered by Julian Varica, who was Julian was the is the founder of Name Audio, which is a very respected British high-end audio electronics company. And they had a label for a period of time, and all of their stuff was great sounding. And this is one. Here's a crazy avant-garde album, but with fantastic sound. Marco Capelli Acoustic Trio. I don't know any of the players on here. It's called Les Nuages en France, and he is playing guitar. Then it's double bass and percussion, and again, just fantastic, fantastic dynamics. Man, you get whiplash listening to this record. I hope the glare isn't too bad. I'm going to show two albums from ECM by the Tord Gustafsson Trio. And these are long-standing reference albums for me. I used to use this one, The Ground. I would take this with me when I was auditioning speakers years and years ago, and quite extraordinary. Piano trios typically have great sound, and these are unbelievable. Very, very involving, very spacious. The bass on there is extraordinary. Just, just, just absolutely beautiful stuff. Highly recommend it. Here's an obscure one, but a beautiful album. Also, a long-time reference album that I used to play when people would come over just to hear the system. This is by Salvatore Bonafede, called Journey to Donna Fogata. The great lineup. It's got, who's on this? It's got Enrico Rava on here, John Abercrombie, Ben Strait, Ralph Towner guests on here. And again, very, very spacious, very three-dimensional. Absolutely fantastic stuff. This came out on Cam Jazz, the Italian jazz label, and a lot of stuff on Cam Jazz. Very, very good stuff. Next, this is the other SACD I decided to include, just because I like this album. It's by Bob Belden, who is a great producer, but Bob is also a musician. And this is a concept album based around the mystery of the Black Dahlia. And he's got great people on here. I'm going to read off Tim Higgins, Joe Lovano's on here, Mark Copeland, Scott Kinsey, Kevin Hayes, Lou Marini, Lou Soloff, Conrad Herwig, Mark Migliori, others. And again, just really beautiful stuff. A lot of these albums, for me, and it may sound odd to you, I like to turn the lights off to the room and the speakers. I don't have the visual cue of the speakers. So the sound stage opens up and that's when you can really start to place the musicians in the sound field. Great stuff. Okay. I know this is long and I don't know, well, we're sort of in the home stretch. Now we're going to talk about Frank Zappa, The Yellow Shark. Now, this came out on his Barking Pumpkins label, and this was a recording he did towards the end of his career. You can see Frank's not looking so great. He was pretty sick at this point. This is from 1993, and this was recorded with Ensemble Moderne. I don't remember if this was Germany, Switzerland. I guess I should know that. I don't, maybe in France, but it is an extraordinary orchestral interpretation of Frank's compositions with him conducting. And it is mind-blowing. This was a long-time reference recording. John Atkinson, the editor, the longtime editor at Stereophile, always would talk about the Yellow Shark whenever he was evaluating equipment. This was one of his go-to CDs. Great stuff. Now I'm going to talk about a couple of classical albums. Then we'll get into some soundtracks. And Classical really is not my area of interest anymore. I used to listen to a lot of classical music, not so much anymore. In fact, pretty rare. But there are a lot of great sounding classical recordings, which I think are worth your time. I'm just going to mention two. This is an extraordinary one. This is the Fires, the Three-Corner Hat. This was recorded, I think, I think it was like around 1958, believe it or not. And it's Enrique Jorda and London Symphony, and they also do Bela Bartok's Dance Suite. That's Janos Ferencik and the London Philharmonic. So this was recorded by Bert White, who was later on in years, he was the editor for Audio Magazine, which is long defunct. But in the 50s and 60s, he was a recording engineer. And he used 35 millimeter tape. And he would do the recordings, which is three microphones, all tube recording. And this was released on his Everest Records label. And I'm trying to look while I'm talking. Recorded in 1960. And just a 3-inch, and phenomenal. You Are There quality. Another one. This is this actually. I guess we'll call this a cheat. This is a DVD recording, 2496 on Classic Records. This is Pavel Kogan conducting the Moscow State Symphony Orchestra doing Rimsky-Korsakov's Scheherazade. Actually, it was recorded in '99, and again, just absolutely fantastic. Got to make sure that your system, that your player can play a DVD. If you have a DVD player, if you have a SACD player, you should be fine. Okay, world music. This is from, I'm going to say this is from Hong Kong. And this is Dadawa, sister drum. And the dynamics on this, just insane. Female vocals, and just, this is a mind blower, absolute mind blower, unlike anything you've ever heard in your lifetime, frankly. Let's get into some soundtracks and then we're done. And then you can curse me out for wasting all your time with this stuff. There's some great sounding soundtracks, which again would be fantastic to use as references if you're going out and evaluating audio equipment. This is by Hans Zimmer. It's called A Thin Red Line, and great movie, and beautiful dynamics. The second track, The Lagoon. Oh my God, it's like a depth charge. Your woofers are just they're gonna cry for mercy. Another great one. Another Hans Zimmer. Hans had a lot of good sounding albums. And this one is the Da Vinci Code. Also, this was released on Decca. Just great. Look, what do we have? We have more Hans Zimmer. This is Hans Zimmer and Lisa Gerrard. This is the soundtrack to Gladiator. And again, really extraordinary, huge recording. This is one I got turned on to. I remember I was a sound by singer in Manhattan for an audio demonstration from Krell Electronics and Apogee speakers. And Krell always had some of the best sounding CDs. And this is the soundtrack to Alien 3 by Elliot Goldenthal. And this will scare the living shit out of you. Very dynamic, very spooky, very ethereal, and just epic. Fantastic. And here's the last one. And this one is really, I think for me, is very important. And if you want to, and you just want to buy one CD, this is the one. Rosewood. This is the soundtrack. John Williams composed and conducted this. And this recording is a torture test for any system. This album has absolutely extraordinary sound, electric bass, electric instruments. The second track, Look Down Lord, has a gospel choir that is just mind blowing. The sound stage on this thing is huge, front to back layering, ex extension of the soundstage that goes beyond your speakers. Just wild. Female vocals on here, just orchestral dynamics. You could take everything else I've said, throw them in the trash, and just buy this if you want to show off your system. The soundtrack to Rosewood, and this came out on Sony Classical, and I often pick up sealed cheap copies on Amazon and give them away as gifts. You can get it real cheap. Anyway, that's what I came up with. In the comments, if you have some recommendations, please, I'll check them out if I can. Maybe I have them. I wish there was even more, but yeah, check these out if you can. A lot of these you could find used on Discogs. They're not really very expensive at all. And I feel if you're interested in great sound, uh, that I think you'll enjoy them. So let me know what you think. And sorry for going on and on and on, but there we go.